Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Product Angle Show. And on today's episode, I have Shrinedhi Rajan. How are you, Shrinedhi?
I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Shrinedhi Rajan, an early career product manager and a recent master's graduate from Cornell. To talk about my professional experience, I was a software engineer before joining Cornell, and my experience with software engineering brought me to the domain of product, where I was very good at identifying the business opportunities, knowing what value I gave rather than just implementing solutions. That was how I broke into product management, and I'm always curious to learn. And that also expanded my expertise to digital marketing. So that is me professionally. And apart from that, I believe in women empowerment. So I am part of multiple community building activities and I lead the Products by Women chapter of Denver, where I work. And apart from that, I also founded the Product Management Club at Cornell just to facilitate other aspiring PMs to connect together, prepare for interviews and things. And one fun fact about me is that I recently adopted a one and a half year old rhino called Apollo. So I'm very excited to be a part of his life.
Excellent. Well, you took away my question. I was going to ask you, tell us something that we cannot Google about you, and you
Okay.
mentioned it right there.
Right.
So what made you get into product management? Was this something that as you were studying at Cornell, was this a career choice that you actively seeked out, or is it something that you realize is out there and you just had the natural ability to gravitate towards?
Right, sure. So I would approach this in two perspectives. One was, again, back to my software engineering experience. So I had some 2 years of experience, right? So at the end of maybe 1.5 years, I know I was good in identifying the business opportunities, and I volunteered myself in my team internally to contribute to the product team's work. Like I approached my product manager, contributed to creating stories that would also require technical expertise. And that's how I figured I was not just interested, but I was capable of doing that. I was showing initiative, showing some tangible effort to be done. And that's when I also got in touch with the organization called Women in Product, the Chennai chapter of that. I'm from India, and they have Chennai, Bangalore, and multiple other chapters in India. And I attended their workshops just to get myself familiarized with maybe product thinking, what actually product is, and wanted to see if it was the right career choice for me. And once I figured that out, I decided I don't have a lot of work experience, and hence having an educational background with focus on product management would help me make the transition to product easier. And that's how I landed up in Cornell, and I did my master's with focus on product management. And I finally had my first PM job here at June at a company called PointsBet.
Congrats. So I'm going to bring up your presentation, and I'm going to leave the screen. So over to you.
Perfect. Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about myself for a minute, but I think we have covered most of the part already. But I just wanted to make sure I bring out this caption, my favorite caption. So to succeed, you must study the end game before everything else. This has also been quoted in my most favorite book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. So this caption resonates with me a lot. And what you envision, how you envision yourself in the future is what drives you in the present. I firmly believe in that. And as I already mentioned before, professionally, I believe in product management. And apart from that, I believe in women empowerment and try to do in multiple communities as long as it is possible for me. So that is about me. So without taking too much of time, I would like to maybe give a quick agenda of what I'm planning to tell to the audience, share my experiences and things. First of all, I thank you, Pradeep, for facilitating a platform to share my experiences and learnings with the community. And so regarding the agenda, I would like to approach it in two parts, right? So first is the session is going to be about how I broke into product management. And I believe more than just sharing my story, it is important to give the actionables that the audience can work on so that they also break into product. And hence, I've decided to take this in two parts. The first one is about understanding if product is the right role for you. And in case you figure that out, the next part will be about how do you prepare yourself to break into product, right? So, and I am a quote person, so I'll just make sure each of the session begins with a quote. Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. right? So with that caption, let's move on to understanding what product is. Okay, so product management has been in the trend for a few years now. If maybe you have been following the job post recently, or how the industry trend has been going on, there are a lot of product management openings in the recent times. But product management is not something that has been new to the industry. It has been started in the early 1930s with HP and P&G. They are the ones who started product management. So without going into the history of product, I would like to explain why product is important, so that you know what value you're going to add to the company, right? So in whichever company you're working in, irrespective of the domain, what you're planning to achieve is solve the market problems. The market, or the final end user and the client, is someone who has some problem that needs to be solved by any subject matter expertise, a developer or a business person, and anything, right? So there are two ways. One is business and one is engineering. What does business do? I have this great business idea. How am I supposed to implement this? How do I get this to the market? That's what the business is thinking. Maybe this includes building a new domain completely for the company, like how Microsoft or Oracle wanted TikTok to be a part of them, right? And for engineering, it's like, this is the latest and greatest new technology. Let me just implement it. Let me just improvise my product in a way that my app is the fastest, my app is the best user experience and things. How do I explain this? So, when there was no concrete language for front end development, the developers from Facebook created their own language called React.js, right? So that is how engineering approaches it. How do I make or create or utilize the latest technology so that my product is the best in the market? So this is how business and engineering function together, and it finally ties up to solve the market needs, right? So in that case, where does product come? Why is even product needed? So the companies that I mentioned before, which have just business and engineering, they are driven by the forces of the greatest and latest business ideas and technology, right? This approach lacked the focus in maybe spreading the resources and maybe the people, and allocating the actual resources to the concepts and the ideas they needed to execute. This sometimes led to product market fit, but most of the times it did not. They had some great idea in mind, they had implemented something really well, but it did not in the end solve the market need. And it all ended up in a mess. And all of the people were intelligent, but the knowledge resided in their heads and it was not allocated, spread across the complete organization and the institution, right? So this is where product comes in. So the business knows why you are doing it. By why, I mean, what is the objective of your industry? You want to just monetize your product? Do you want to connect people? For example, let's take Facebook. Facebook's mission is to build community and empower people, right? Maybe for Google, it's about making the information accessible. So the business goal is about defining the why. And the product here depends on what and when. By what and when, I mean, you know why you're going to do something, but what do you do to achieve that why? Let's again take Facebook as an example. You are going to build community, but how do you build it? What do you do to build that community? You maybe create a Facebook application, or maybe have a tab called Facebook groups where people of similar interest interact with each other, and maybe build a community among themselves, or offer Facebook events where people of similar interest meet and get to know each other, share their ideas, right? So what you do is something that product decides. And again, how you do depends on the engineering team's capability, the technological impact and things. So how does product collaborate with all of this? By tying back to the why that I have already explained just now, and now going back to how, the product should not, this is something that is very important for a product manager to know. You should not dictate the engineering team how to implement it, but you can be a part of the discussion and maybe help the engineering team break their technology into phases and solve the desired market needs, right? So that is where product fits in. So now that you know what product management is and what you can do as a product person, it's important to know what roles a product manager has to take, what multiple hats you have to take, and what is your strong area, what other areas you have to improve, right? So I believe in having a pie-shaped skill set, right? Having multiple areas of strong knowledge and a diverse broad knowledge. To begin with that, you should have at least a T-shaped skill set. So to build that, these are the multiple hats that a product manager has to wear. be it a product advocate, a troubleshooter, a subject matter expertise, and everything. So you have to be everything at the end as a product manager. When you even reach the higher ladders in product management position, you have to wear all of these multiple hats. But you should begin with a strong point where no one else can replace you in that area. Be it your own company or maybe in your team, you should be that one go-to person for a specific topic. So I would just take a minute or two maybe to just share what these different hats mean and how to build maybe a specific area of expertise, right? So product advocate is someone who's a champion and he promotes the product within and outside the organization, right? So you understand the product in and out, know the nuances, know the pain points, know completely everything about the product. So this is one key area you can easily build a T-shaped skill set. So this is needed for a product manager because when you thoroughly understand your product, you can still know the pain points that your application is currently creating, how else you can improve your application and things. So being a product advocate is something that you should definitely start doing as a product manager. Troubleshooter. So troubleshooter is someone who moves across the business, sorting out the business problems, resolving them, maybe noting them down, and juggles multiple things and know what is happening, what is wrong with the application, right? The next one is the expert compromiser. So expert compromiser is someone who takes the view of what's the best to the product and balance it with multiple collaborative teams, right? So the subject matter expertise is someone who knows the product inside out. The difference between product advocate and a subject matter expertise expert is that a subject matter expert is also familiar with the technological part of it, the operations part of it, the balancing the complete part of the application rather than just from the product perspective, right? So if you're from a software engineering background or if you're a quality assurance background, subject matter expertise is something that you can build over the years while you break into product, right? Creator. Creator is someone who comes up with new ideas and innovations to the product. So in the T-shaped skill set, I would prefer calling myself as a creator because I have the eyes for the new ideas and improvements for my product. I am also a product advocate, but I would say my strong area is being a creator. The next one is about owner of the numbers. So this is one key skill that is being tested in every product management interview. How do you estimate things? How do you use data to support your decision making? What key metrics do you track so that your product is successful? So all of this is possible only if you are an owner of numbers, right? Now, a reliable project manager. This is sometimes a controversial topic. So product manager is always said to have is said to be the owner of the product and not the owner of the people, where you don't have any actual impact or command or control over the people who are working on the product. You just can say, this is how the product should be. These are the features that should be included in the product, but you don't give them deadlines. You don't ask them what they are doing, right? You just can keep a track, but you don't have any direct command over them. But you still have to be a reliable project manager where you facilitate the people to move forward in delivering the best product. So that's where you strike the right balance without overpowering the engineers and giving also driving the product forward, right? Being the voice of the market. This is some skill which is very important for a product manager, but it takes a lot of time to build that expertise, build that nuance, build that customer perspective for your product, right? For example, let's say I'm a product manager of WhatsApp. I know how to use my application. I know what's best. I know how to do things quickly. But that's not how my end user might also approach it. Maybe my end user does not know how to take a photo from my WhatsApp. So maybe should I change the icons or should I change the position of the icon or should I change something else or even eliminate the camera feature? All of this will come only if I think from the end user's perspective, right? You need not necessarily be the end user's voice, but you can always facilitate understanding the voice of the market. That is something that a key product manager should drive before he or she reaches being the part of voice of the market. So you have to work with the customer support team or maybe the voice of the customer team, understand, do user surveys, make maybe video interviews, use techniques like eye tracking or how they clickability tracking, how they navigate in your application or the product, understand what their voice is rather than just being the voice yourself, right? So this will take a long while to build, but it is always good to have a start. And the final part, the only part that I don't agree with is being the mini CEO of the product. This is again a controversial point, but I firmly believe a product manager is not the mini CEO of the product. You are a product, you are a part of the product, an essential part of the product, but you are not the key decision maker. You are not the one who's implementing it. You're the one who's facilitating that everything is happening in the right way. You're the one who's maybe getting in the requirements, coordinating with the team, prioritizing, getting it to the market, and taking in the voice of the customer and implementing a new product, but you're not the mini CEO, right? So again, so this is something that you have to keep in mind. You're just in charge of the product and the features, but not the people. But when something goes wrong, even with the people or maybe the project management part, you're supposed to be held responsible. So that puts you in a position where you lead, but without authority. So that's about multiple hats that you should wear as a product manager. And now, before we move on to how to prepare yourself, how to equip yourself to break into product, I will just take one more slide to show you which one of the two you should choose to break into product, right? So, in product management, there are just two perspectives. One is either PM or a TPM, a product manager and a technical product manager. And there is a role called product marketing manager, which sits in between both of this, right? So let's keep PMM out of the discussion, and now let's just have PM and TPM, right? So both PM and TPM focus on solving the customer pain points. The overall objective and the day of both of them look similar. It's just that who they interact with to get things done is what makes the difference, right? So while a PM interacts with the customer support marketing team, what they do is they try to understand what the customer's pain point are and maybe make product changes, implement it, and make sure the customer's needs are served. Right? That is how a PM works. What a TPM does is the TPM also interacts with the same marketing customer support team, but the TPM understands what are the pain points of these teams so that the pain points of these teams are resolved so that they in turn solve the customer's pain points. So for a product manager, the end user is the direct customer. For a technical product manager, the internal teams who again face the customers are the end users. That is the key difference between a PM and a TPM. And it is very important to know what your strengths are. Who are you comfortable interacting with? Are you from a strong software engineering background with a business mindset? If that's the case, you should have your focus on cracking the TPM interviews. But you're maybe from a marketing or sales background and less familiar with the technical concepts, but you strongly understand the voice of the customer, know their needs well, that is where you should focus your attention towards the PM role, right? So to just give an example, let's say maybe X is an e-commerce company and checkout is a very important process in any e-commerce company, right? So as a product manager, your goal is to have maybe the proper wording, the labels, the UX looks good, how big or how small the icon should be, what all third-party integration should happen in the checkout process. So all of this is something that a PM takes care of. But what a TPM takes care of is that, let's say again in the checkout page, we just have a promotion. Maybe get 50% off if you just check out in 2 minutes, something like that. So this promotion is created by the marketing team. What a TPM does is create an automation suite so that the client segment specific promotions are displayed at the checkout, right? Both the TPM and the PM focus on solving the customer needs, but how they facilitate solving the customer need is something that is the only difference between these two roles, right? So this brings us to the end of the first part, knowing what a product manager is, what multiple hats you should wear to see if you can actually wear them and where you fit either as a PM or a TPM, right? So now the next session is going to be how do you prepare yourself or how do you prepare for your interview so that you be a PM or a TPM. Before I move on to the session, I would just take a minute or two just to see if there are any questions in the first session. If not, we'll just move on to the second part.
Hey, Shrinedhi, there are a few questions here. I'm going to put them up on the screen.
Right.
So Tapatra says, super intuitive presentation of the multiple hats a PM has to wear. Was just curious on how to build subject matter expertise if I am new to the domain or switching domains.
Perfect. So this is something that I'm currently doing, right? I'm currently working in a sports betting industry. I'm not familiar with sports betting at all. But for a product manager, it is very important that you are a subject matter expert. So how do you do that? Let's say your application is X. X has a certain competitors, maybe Y, Z, and A, right? So run through their application, know what features they are offering, understand why they are offering, note down the key terms, have a list or have a glossary for yourself, understand what those terms mean, understand in turn what the business impact is. See what your competitors are doing, see why you're doing something and why you're not doing something. That will show you what the content is, what technology, what features, why they are doing it, what is the business objective behind it. That's how you start slowly understanding the industry and the business. And when you just do it for maybe 3 4 months, you will know the different nuances. Every competitor will be introducing a feature, and all the other competitors will be running towards that feature in a few months. So you'll know there is something that is specific for this feature. Maybe in turn it is driving more revenue, or in turn it is bringing in more customers. So you should again start thinking along those perspectives, and that's how you build the subject matter expertise. And it's not, you just can't get that done by reading. It's about, you should do that in real life. You should just install multiple applications, use them, compare them, look from the perspective of the end user. Sometimes you should just remove your product manager hat and put on a hat of a customer so that you know what's happening in the application. It gives you a different mindset to approach it. So that's how you should build the subject matter expertise, according to me.
Thank you. We have another one here
Yeah.
from Ayushi. I am a software developer and
Right.
now making a transition towards becoming a TPM. How should I
Right.
progress?
Perfect. So I'll just hold on this question for a minute because the next session is going to cover the interview process. How do you prepare yourself? So if that's okay, I'll just cover this question in the
Yep.
other part of my session.
And same thing with Omer. He has the same question, but he's coming from pre-sales.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So let's move on to preparing for, how do you prepare yourself for breaking into the product management, right? So again, I'll just begin with a quote. The secret to getting ahead is getting started, right? With that being said, let's move on to how you break into product. So there are multiple ways to break into product, right? Three are the key ways. One is about internal transfer. One is about the lateral entry. The other one is having an educational background that would facilitate. And 50% of the PM jobs are filled with internal transfers. And 25 to 30% are for the students, and the rest 10-15% are just the 10-15% are for the lateral entries. So if you are an engineer or a marketing or a salesperson, I would strongly recommend you trying for an internal transfer. So what is an internal transfer? Just as I shared my experience, I was a software engineer, but I found that I had a strong business acumen, and I started proposing. Instead of just sharing my interest, I volunteered my time, volunteered my effort so that I understand the product management competencies, started having a hands-on experience so that when there is a product management opening, I'm being considered rather than hiring a lateral entry, right? Because as a software engineer, let's say I would just start with the software engineering experience, right? So before coming to Cornell, I was working in a fintech institution where we started building credit risk products, right? It was a web application and I was a developer. So initially for the first 1 year, I was just focusing on, I was using React.js and Spring Boot API, right? So I was a electrical and electronics engineering undergrad, and moving into the software engineering was completely new for me. So for the first 1 year, I spent too much time understanding the latest technologies, making myself competent so that I stay top of it, right? So for the first 1 year, I was just implementing it. I was just looking from the technological perspective, how well can I improve this better, right? And then after 1 year, I just took a pause and I stepped back saying, why am I actually doing this? So instead of just having a page or having an icon, why am I having this? Are there any other ways that I can solve this problem? Or am I missing out certain stakeholders? What does a risk person want? What does a relationship manager want? How do I add that to my application? So I started noting those ideas down, and I started presenting that to my product manager. So that not just opened opportunity for me, but that also expanded the scope of my application, right? So that's how you put yourself in the shoes of the product manager when you're not a product manager. That is how most of the internal transfers work. And regarding pre-sales, I'm sorry, I do not have a concrete experience on pre-sales. I cannot talk on that part. So I was a software engineer and I could resonate with the other questions. So that was how I approached transitioning from a software engineering background to a product manager background internally. So, but the rest of the session will cover how you, irrespective of what your role is, how do you transfer to product management, right? So now I would also take a moment to share the other part, the student part. How do you transition into product? Because I recently graduated and made that switch, right? So recently, most of the companies have started having APM or RPM programs. These are not just for fresh grads. These are for grads with also previous experience. For example, the Facebook's RPM program hires fresh grads who also have 5 years of past experience, right? And Google hires undergrads who have no experience at all for the APM positions. So, irrespective of your work experience, if you're a fresh grad, both undergrad and masters, you have opportunities open in APM and RPM roles, right? So for students, one solution I would say is about take the coursework in a way that it gives a comprehensive knowledge of the complete product lifecycle. By this, what I mean is, in my coursework, my focus was on product management. My specialization was product management. But the coursework I took covered also project management, negotiation strategy, consumer behavior, digital marketing, and the other areas of the product because I wanted to be a product manager. And as a product manager, you have to collaborate with multiple teams and understanding this verbiage, understanding the nuances, their terminologies will help you understand the pain points better. And that's why you should have a comprehensive knowledge of the product lifecycle management, right? So while preparing, this is one advice I would like to give for anyone who's trying to break into product management. I would like to this is my small advice that I practice that helped me a lot in product thinking perspective, right? So while preparing, start with a tech application that you use every day, be it a social media application like WhatsApp, Instagram. Let's just take Instagram. So start asking, I would say I have 4 questions in my mind, and I would say that you also do that so that you have that product thinking mindset. The first one is, why is this product better than its competitors? Let's just compare Instagram and Facebook. Both of them belong to the same parent company called Facebook, but I use Instagram more than Facebook. So why is this product better than these competitors? Are there certain features? Is it about just displaying the pictures? Is it about stories or is it about privacy? Why is this product better than its competitors or other products, right? The second question is, how does this product solve my needs and solve my unique pain points? So my pain point is about, I would just want to connect with my friends. Both Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything is doing that. But how is Instagram doing it uniquely? What particular pain point is it solving? Note that down. And third is about, how is it innovative? What makes Instagram special so that I use it every day? There should be something in the product, right? What attracts you the most? Note that down. The final point I would say is about, what does the product do really well? And not all products are perfect. Not every product is perfect, right? All products have some areas of improvement. That's how you grow. That's how a product company grows, right? So note down what pain points you have, and if you are a product manager or a designer, how will you approach it? What new technique will you use to solve that pain point, or how do you improve? So when you start noting down for this, do one or two start with one application a day, right? In 30 days, you will just have a hint of all the applications in your phone. So this will help you understand the complete product life cycle. You have a need, how is it currently solved? What other needs is it not solving? How are the competitors solving it differently? So these are certain things that you should start thinking as a product manager, and starting this as a simple exercise with the applications that you're familiar of will take you a long, great distance, right? So also recently, I lost touch of this and I use Duolingo daily, right? I've been learning Spanish. I like learning new languages and I started learning Spanish. And it's about 95 days I've been using Duolingo every single day. And when I wrote a small article about this, I was having a 70-day mark. It was 70 days I was using an application daily, at least for 15-20 minutes. So there is something attached to this application. How is this application performing better? Why am I not using the other applications? What makes me captive? So these are certain areas I started looking at, and that's how I started building my product thinking, product expertise, right? So that is about how you start thinking when you prepare. So to moving on, I will just take a minute just to share the overall interview process, how it looks like, and then maybe given some more tips or details about how you approach each of this session, right? So the interview with the recruiter and the hiring manager are mostly from the behavioral perspective, right? So one key point I would say here is that what I'm currently doing is a presentation. This session is for me to share my experiences, but interview is not that. It is a conversation, not a presentation, right? Consider that as a brainstorming session. You give your ideas, but also listen to what the other person is saying and incorporate their points in your answer. That's how you succeed. Because you were looking for a job, the other person is looking for a person to join the team. Both of you have some need. Understand that common pain point, talk, listen what they want, try to incorporate that in your answer. That's how you move on to the next rounds, right? So this is about the first two rounds. And for the last two rounds, I'll take 2, 3 slides to explain that. And now I'll just use the slide to stress the importance of take home assignment, right? The first two and last two rounds are comparatively easy according to me because you're talking to a person. You can correct your answer. You can understand the other person's emotions either through the voice or voice modulations, expressions, and things, and maybe you can streamline your answer. But that's not the case for a take home assignment. You're just expressing yourself completely, all your ideas in a way that it is pleasant, it is appealing, the other person can understand that. You are not having a conversation, you're just putting your ideas, you're dumping your ideas on the paper, right? So that is why take home assignments are very tricky. So what I would suggest for take home assignments is that ask why and what. What is this product currently doing and not doing? So as a product manager applicant, why are you doing or why are you proposing a certain feature? So one key point that all aspiring product managers fail is that they have great ideas. They give out everything. I want to change that. I want to change this. Okay, perfect. But how do you measure that? You always have to understand more about the key performance indicators, KPIs, or the key metrics, right? So maybe if I just change the color of this, it is highlighted and the user starts noting that every day and the application is, the feature is used most. So what metrics do you track? It is a feature active usage or the daily active usage, right? So maybe in the checkout, you're modifying certain things and that's where the checkout process is completed at a faster rate. So you see the conversions happening there and how is your monetization increasing. So these are a few metrics that you should tag to your feature. You should know why you are implementing this feature. You know why you're implementing this feature, but also put that on paper with the key mapping with the metrics, right? And state all your assumptions in the take home assignment. Because when you're answering a question, you have a time to clarify what you're thinking, maybe make modifications, rectify your answer and things. But again, that's not the case in a take home assignment. So state your assumptions, propose it clearly, put a column called proposal and explain what all you're assuming, what all you're not considering as a part of the solution, and that's how you should approach it, right? Also, in order to maybe show yourself apart, talk about the competitors, what they are doing and what they are not doing, and also talk about the execution part. By execution, I mean don't give them how you are implementing it from a software engineering perspective or maybe just a technological perspective, but tell them how you would estimate the effort. Is this a large project by itself or is it just minor feature enhancements? How much time it will take? What are the dependencies with the other team? Is it just about the development team and the testing team? Or do we involve the marketing, sales, and everyone in the picture? So talk about the team dependencies and the launch criteria. So this gives a comprehensive experience of your knowledge and you put everything in the paper and the other person knows, the person who is reading, the hiring manager or the recruiter knows you have a comprehensive knowledge of the product lifecycle, right? So now that the take-home assignment part is covered and a bit of the first two rounds are covered, I would just take the next slide to share about the behavioral interviews, right? So behavioral interviews are the ones that are being tested in the first two rounds, right? So companies like Amazon have a list of leadership principles and they test that in every round, especially the behavioral round, right? So what I would say here is that behavioral questions are easy from anyone's perspective. It is just about share your experience where you showed the leadership, share your experience where you failed the most, share an experience where you're the most proud of and things. These are very easy. You could just state anything. So, but if everyone states that, how do you stand apart? The framework that is very famous and most of them try to implement is the STAR framework, where you don't actually memorize the answer. Take 10, 15 questions that are available on the website. So have an answer, relate to a past situation with the answer, right? By this, you're not memorizing the answer, but you're just practicing yourself to think about a situation very quickly and answering it in a STAR framework, right? So how do you know if you're answering effectively? All of us have friends, and not all friends are from the same background as us. As someone who's an aspiring product manager, I would say talk to a friend who's not from a PM background, right? Just share your experience as a star in the STAR framework. Don't tell the question, don't say anything. Just answer your behavioral questions, prepared answer in a STAR framework, and ask the other one what key skill did they observe from the answer. So that shows how your recruiter or the hiring manager will understand and interpret your answer for the behavioral round, because they are not from the product management perspective. They don't have any background with respect to the technology or product. They are just some person who's observing your behavioral skills, right? So having this interaction with your friend who's from a non-PM background will definitely help you crack this round, because you're not revealing the question, the other one is just interpreting from your answer. This is how you validate if your answer is actually effective, and you can just make modifications and tweaks based on the other one's feedback, right? So one more framework that I would also suggest for the behavioral round is the DIGS framework. DIGS framework is a framework that is suggested by Louis Seelan. Whoever is preparing for product manager would have heard his name either for mock interviews or for books or for preparation and anything. I'll also share his link at the end of the slide. So DIGS framework is where you dramatize the situation, indicate the alternatives, go through what you're going to do, and summarize, right? Summarize is a key part for any stage of the interview, not just for behavioral. So the next round is about the technical questions. So technical questions are a very key role for a TPM interview. But even if you're applying for a product manager job, technical product management questions are being asked, especially in the FANG interviews, right? So here are a few links where you could just build your product expertise from the technical point of view. And let's again take the checkout as an example. As a PM, or a TPM, you need not know how you will implement the API or the logic between checkout for the checkout process. But as a PM, you should know, like maybe a server is or an environment is needed for this to be up. There should be a database or a data warehouse to bring in the data, maybe the user ID, password, and the validating the credentials, and how long should be the timeout, and things like that, right? These are some basic technical awareness that everyone should have. You need not know in depth how do you implement it, how do you set the server up, how do you set the environment up. You need not know all of that, but you should know all of those work have to be done. This shows you have a product vision in your mind, right? So this also gives you the ability to collaborate with engineers and the QA team. This shows how well you are a team, how good team player you are, right? So this is for the technical questions that I would say. And for preparing for this, I would say cracking the PM interview is something that you have to study if you're a technical product manager, for sure. It will just give you some basic coding questions just to understand the logic and the behavior. But if you're just applying for the product management interview, I would still recommend having a glimpse of the cracking the PM interview. And Swipe to Unlock is a book that helps you familiarize yourself with the technologies, the concepts, and the verbiage, right? So moving on to the final session of the product interviews is a product round. By product round, it's not just one round. There are 3 to 5 sub rounds, which include product design, product sense, execution, estimation, data analysis, and so on. So it's very important to ask your recruiter in the initial first or second stage. It is important to know how your day looks like, because as a product manager, you're someone who's interacting with many different teams, right? So in case if you're in a role where you interact a lot with the marketing team, most of your questions and the interviews, the product round will be focused mainly on the marketing perspective. How will you solve their problems, right? So typically your product round will replicate how your day as a PM is going to look like. So I would strongly recommend utilizing the first 2 stages, the round with the recruiter and the hiring manager, to understand how your day looks like so that you are prepared for the interview, right? And again, for product design and strategy, there are methods like the circles method, and Decode and Conquer is a very good book to prepare yourself for that. And for all of the product questions, keep in mind that your culture fit is being checked. Let's take maybe Google as an example for this. Google does not initially focus on scaling. It just focuses on offering the best experience, best user experience. So your answer should be sorry for that. So your answer should be focusing more on the implementation perspective where you give the best user experience. But for Facebook, it's based on scalability. So the user persona you're going to talk about should be of a big scale so that they know you are also thinking along the lines of Facebook's goals, right? So having that culture fit in your reflecting in your answers is very important when you crack the PM interviews, right? And finally, what I would say is about making a first impression is really important with the recruiter and the hiring manager, but what matters the most is about how you end this conversation. Because when someone recalls you, they'll recall with the answers and the examples that you gave, but not just the statements. Make sure you give your answer with a story, right? Give some actionables for them to think on. This is effectively called call for action in the product management and marketing terms, but you should give them a call for action. Make them introduce, make them curious. So that's how you end it on a good note, right? So this is mostly it. And finally, without taking too much time, these are just a quick do's and don'ts. And you might not implement or showcase all the do's listed, but I would strongly recommend not showing any of the don'ts listed, right? By don't be a, let's just take one or two as an example. By don't be a visionary, I don't mean that you should not envision things. As of course, as a product manager, you have to envision things. You have to see where your product goes. You should be capable of creating a product roadmap. But what this actually means is that when you have a particular thought process in mind, you want effectively look out for the other opportunities and areas of improvement in your product. That's where you miss out. So by don't be a visionary, I mean don't just focus on your own product roadmap that you followed. Be open to suggestions, implement that, make corrections to your product roadmap so that it again aligns to your overall business goal, but also implements the new opportunities that you discover, right? And saying no is a very important quality that a product manager should have. You cannot say no for all the requests that all the teams ask. You should have a proper thought process in your mind. If a particular request is coming from maybe a marketing team or a sales team, they are of course interacting with the customers. So there is some pain point that is visible from the teams, right? So track the KPIs, know why you're saying no. Is it because of the prioritization? If so, add it back to the product backlog. Make sure everyone's ideas are heard. Just have your own prioritization strategy, like maybe the RICE framework or the value effort matrix or the Moscow framework. Just get familiar, just make yourself familiarized with these prioritization frameworks and know why you are doing that so that you'll be able to say no for the things that are not relevant for your product and have an eye for identifying the opportunities from everywhere, right? So that being said, all of this is very helpful, especially if you're interested in knowing about product and what skills you should have, how to face your interviews, right? But I always believe in giving the actionables. And again, I believe books are a very important resource to build your knowledge, validate your ideas and things. And I would strongly encourage reading these three books. Again, the Cracking the PM interview, even if you're a PM or an aspiring TPM, right? And Decode and Conquer is specifically for the product design rounds. So the first two books are if you're clear about your career choice, that product management is the right thing for you, you already discovered it, you're just preparing for it. But if you're someone who's just figuring out which career path is right for you, you should first understand what a product manager does, what other opportunities are available relevant to the product space. And for that, I would strongly recommend reading the book called Inspired. So this is for all of these books are 200 to 50 pages, and it would take maybe an hour a day for 2-3 weeks. I believe if you focus and answer that. But if you're in a bit of time crunch, Louis Seelan, he is also the author of the book Decode and Conquer. He has a 2-week interview prep. He also has a 30-day interview prep for the fan companies and things. So that's how I would suggest you prepare. And the final one is, again, this is just a Decode and Conquer. The book, this part is from the book Decode and Conquer. This is just a cheat sheet where all the product managers have a quick glance of it before attending the interview. So I'd also suggest you have a look after reading the books and preparing yourself for the interview. So that was it. I'll again open the floor for questions, if any.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions here. That was awesome, by the way. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. what, according to you, are the most important parameters on which the take-home assignments are evaluated?
Right. So as I pointed out, what you're evaluated against is that how aware are you of the complete product lifecycle management. Start from ideation phase and complete it with the making it the product market fit. How do you support your application after it is being launched? So your comprehensive approach is something that is being tested, right? And one more point that is being tested, I feel, is about, are you speculative or are you making data driven decisions? You can just say this product needs this improvement, the user has this pain point, but how do you validate your ideas? Is there some metrics that is available? But one suggestion that I would also say is about reading the company's financial reports or reading the company's newsroom. Every company has its own newsroom and the financial publications in its website. So before you do a take-home assignment, have a look at that. They'll talk about the key features and the metrics associated with it. So make sure you incorporate those ideas and suggestions that they revealed in your answer for your advantage, right? So these are the two things that I feel is very key for your take-home assignment to be successful.
Thank you. And Anuja says, how often do you face ambiguity in the role as a PM? What steps do you take to keep the project moving forward despite the ambiguity?
Right, that makes complete sense because I recently moved to product, and the first 3 months I was working on a particular project called a state rollout where I'm familiar with what's happening, how do I approach the next steps, how do I give the development team the work that they should work on. But now I'm also taking up another project where I'm not quite sure what the end goal is. I know we are going to create something that is effective for the promotions, but I'm not quite sure if it is to be approached from a technical product management perspective, where I solve the problems of the marketing and the customer support team so that they solve the customer needs again, or directly start working on the customer pain points. And I'm going to spend at least the next 20 days understanding what my end goal should be so that I prioritize my solutions accordingly. And one pointer that I'm following currently is about using the RISE framework, right? Tying it back to the business impact is something that will give you so much clarity. So be it marketing team, be it customer support team, or be it the end users, you always have a business impact associated with it. Be it monetization or the amount of time spent to achieve certain thing. Is the developer's effort actually worth the end result? So these are certain impact metrics that you could track to see if you're interested, if there is a value implementing it, right? So I'm still in the process of finalizing either this or that, but this is how I'm approaching on learning that process, right? And one more thing I would suggest is about the Moscow framework, which is must have, should have, could have, and will not have. So have that as a reference for yourself internally. Do not reveal it to the stakeholders or the developers because that will have an impact in the way that they think. You are a product manager, it is your responsibility to collaborate, take in multiple ideas and implement it. So use this Moscow framework for yourself, not on the features, for all the perspectives that you're being involved, and then again tie it back to the business impact. So that's how I'm currently solving my ambiguity. And in case I discover any more frameworks or techniques, I'll make sure I'll share that with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This was a really awesome session. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for the viewers, if you haven't followed Shrinedhi on LinkedIn, she's very active. Go follow her on LinkedIn. I do have a question for you. You've just started your product management career. What would you do differently based on what you've done so far and where you are now?
Right. So one thing that I'm currently doing, which I could have done before, is about having my hands-on experience in the side projects. This is something that I'm recently doing, but I could have done this earlier. I initially focused on just having an internal transition or having an educational background to make the transition, right? But I missed out on the path of exploring the other opportunities that I have at my hand. So currently, I volunteer my time for an organization called Blindly, where we are yet to launch the application, but we are doing that. So it does not take so much of my time, but it helps me constantly at the top of the product management technologies, terminologies, new business area, that expertise, right? So this is something I didn't explore in the past that I'm doing currently. So I would strongly recommend the others to take this moment to understand the importance of side projects and take it up. And one more thing that I recently started doing but missed out in the past is about talking with the employees of the companies that you aspire to be in. right? So this is not just to crack the interview, but it also shows what culture is needed. How do you make yourself prepared to be in the company? Let's take Amazon as an example. For Amazon, it's like a number of startups tied together within the heading called Amazon. But that's not the case in Google, right? You all work collaboratively towards a common goal. So if you understand the companies, if you talk to the employees of the company, the internal ones, you'll know what culture you want to be a part of. How do you prepare yourself for that? So that is also one advice that I would give myself, my younger self, and the audience who's listening to take that.
Thank you so much. So for our next session is how to be intentional with your time, even working remotely. It's going to be about goal setting and setting goals for your career and your products. It's on Thursday, November 5th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Shrinedhi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise and your experience. Before we end the session, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you so much for facilitating this platform to share my experiences. I hope the audience found some actionable pointers for them to work on. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, everyone.